StreamYard. And we are live, to borrow a phrase from the one and only Josh Engelman. I am joined by Chris Spags here, referencing two of the originals at Stokastic, formerly Osimo. I am but an interloper who has have gun will travel, reads the card of this man. That's for an audience of me, that joke. How is it going, Chris?
Excited to be here. Rare to get a Saturday stream in, but the wife and kid are out of town for the weekend, and Greg Ehrenberg was like, there's an opening, so got to see my old pal Emac for a stream here. Excited to do that. Got a fun baseball slate. The game that I care the most about has some things hanging over it right now. We haven't gotten lineups yet for Arizona Cincinnati because they have to play about 2 innings of a game left from yesterday as well. Weather concern in that game. Besides that, hopefully it'll be a fun slate, Emac. If nothing else, I'll have fun with you if the games themselves might not be profitable.
Yeah, absolutely. Food profitability has not been good this week. I had my worst losing day probably the last 3 years. I qualified for 47 tickets and bought 3 more into the flagship game 1 of the NBA Finals, and I lost 90% of the value.
That was a tough slate, though. Some of the guys that hit in that game, I feel like were a little bit out of left field, and the results as well. But that's showdown basketball in the NBA. You'll be in first place and then hold it into the fourth quarter. It happened to me a few times last week, and you'll be down in like top 250 by the end of the fourth quarter at best sometimes.
Yeah, it was a rough one. It's like you grind all that time to get those tickets, and then whoosh, over in a moment. But I'm back at it in the best ball streets, and you guys can see Chris Tuesdays and Thursdays on this very YouTube channel doing DraftKings best ball drafts and analysis. And you can see him also over on his own channels. Go ahead and plug them, good sir.
Hey, please check out my Splash Play Pod channel, my Splash Play Bets channel if you want my NBA showdown / I think at some point MLB stuff. We'll see how the offseason goes for me. But I'm actually going to have Lofty on the best ball stream on Tuesday, so I'm excited for that. Initially wanted to book Eric Lindquist, but he does an OddsShopper stream at the exact same time. So he's too big of a get for me to get on my best ball streams. But Lofty very graciously reached out, said he was willing to do it. So hopefully we'll pump the views up a little bit because people can, they get fatigued of me and my brilliant takes, unfortunately.
Oh, they are. And just one last plug for Chris is it's nice watching him do the drafts. I like it in podcast form because I listen when I'm out walking. You hear his take as he's on the clock, as he's assembling the team. So it's almost like you are drafting and it's like having a guide. So I do find that very, very helpful.
Well, thank you.
That is our best ball content. And then the deal of the day here is MMA is 50% off. That is with the promo code 316. That is in honor of UFC 316. That is tonight. Goes off at 6 o'clock. You can get the monthly core or the monthly max package at 50% off. Again, this deal ends tonight. The fight locks at 6 p.m. All right, let's talk baseball because that is why we are here. We're going to do some pitching. We're going to do some hitting. We'll cover that later slate as well. But the main focus is going to be on this 4 o'clock slate. There is a 5-game slate at 7:30 tonight. Of course, all of our tools are already set up for that. There's the free Spotlight Pitchers Top Stacks article on the homepage. That also covers that slate as well. But we're going to focus on the games that go off at 4:05. As Chris mentioned, the game is in progress right now, finishing the suspended game from yesterday, Arizona at Cincinnati. How this works, and we haven't seen too many of these, but how this works with lock is, I believe DraftKings FanDuel doesn't have it on their 4 o'clock slate. DraftKings usually locks these at the appointed lock time, whether we know who's starting or who's not. We still have an hour, but they're in the top of the 10th right now. So hopefully we get a resolution.
Are they going into extras?
They're going into extras. So
they never make anything easy on us, can they?
Ever. And you brought up the weather. So the weather part of this is once that game ends, they either start 40 minutes later or at the appointed time. So if the game was already over, they would be starting at 4:05. If the game goes for another 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, they'll still start usually 40 minutes after that game. And again, I'm pretty sure DraftKings is going to lock these contests. Sometimes they change things. This is a scenario we don't get very often, and we'll just see. But operate under the assumption that we're not going to have the starting lineups and they're going to lock. when it comes to the weather aspect of this, it does look like they should be able to get in a second game if this ends if they're able to start around 4 or so or 5. The next wave of storms looks like it comes in sometime between 9 and 11 tonight. So that would still give ample time before that happens, barring any pop-up storms ahead of the regular storm. But it is definitely going to rain tonight in Cincinnati, but we might be able to survive because this should be an afternoon start. All right, that was a lot of ifs, thens, caveats. We've got some.
You did a good job. That really summarized it really well. Part of some of those conditional things, and baseball does have kind of esoteric rules, and you nailed them all. The 40-minute thing, that's what EMAC gives you, that veteran presence of knowing how these things work.
Been a lot. 1990, first year I played fantasy baseball, way back in the day.
I was 6 or 5, I guess. Turning
Julio Franco, Edgar Martinez. Those were some of the players that were on my squad.
Well,
all right.
They were still players 20 years later.
Well, Julio Franco, I was hoping he would end up announcing after he retired at 48 or whatever it was, that he was really 5 years older, because he came into the league when there was still a lot of shenanigans going on with birth certificates, especially for those of the Dominican or Puerto Rico, etc. And that was where they used to have visa problems coming back after the offseason. It's because they didn't have the right documentation a lot of the times. So anyway, that doesn't seem to happen too much anymore. Shout out to Danny Almonte. Okay. Pitching, Spags, all good options here at the top. Hunter Brown, Logan Webb, Gavin Williams surprisingly looks good in the models. Jacob deGrom against the Nationals, he looks like an intriguing option. We get some dart throws there with Taj Bradley, Ryan Weathers, and Ranger Suarez. And Michael Wacha is the winner of Who Faces the White Sox today. Take us through some of the pitching. There's a lot of good decision points here.
Yeah, I think up top, it's hard to argue with Hunter Brown. The lineups for him today facing a Cleveland team that's given up 6 guys in the lineup, strikeout above league average, 23.3% aggregate K rate for the lineup. And Hunter Brown's got arguably, besides Jacob deGrom, I would say, the best stuff on the slate. Overall, 27% K rate for him. The swing strike rate's been pretty good as well at 11%. Chase rate, 42%. Maybe not as good as the elite guys, and definitely in swing strike rate and chase rate, he's a good amount behind Jacob deGrom. So deGrom's got the best stuff, but Hunter Brown, combination of matchup, along with his stuff, along with the low run total going against him with only 3.5 implied. I think he does stand out as your very obvious chalk today. If you're playing cash, he'd probably be the one I would go to, but 43% expected ownership for him. I'm getting him in 25% in the sim, so a little bit under on him, but I think if you're playing a 150 set, you'll get a good amount. I think if you're playing a smaller amount of tournament lineups, there's some dumpster diving you can do for pitchers that have comparably good matchups. But for me today, EMAC, I feel like the combination of stuff plus matchup, I think Hunter Brown and run total as well. Like Hunter Brown kind of checks all the boxes.
I would agree. And this is one of the times where we have to set aside some of our preconceived notions, because for a couple of years, it has been the Cleveland Guardians don't strike out a lot. And that has been so true, but they've had dramatic changes in their roster. So Carlos Santana is not playing today, but he's got a 14% strikeout rate. Jose Ramirez, Steven Kwan, Angel Martinez, they all have very low strikeout rates. But some of the people in the back, in the middle of the lineup, Kyle Manzardo, Gabriel Arias, even Bo Naylor, those guys all strike out 30, 35, 40% in Naylor's case. So there's a fair amount of strikeouts here that weren't always easily on the table. But then we look at a team like Toronto, they're now the team that hardly strikes out, especially against righties, right? And that hadn't been the case. If we look back 3 or 4 years ago, it was definitely the inverse. So you have to kind of remember that it's the makeup of the players. And then I always like to look at what they did the year before as well, just because I think that helps extend the sample size here. And this does look like a decent strikeout spot here, which was not normally our default position when we think about the Cleveland Guardians there. How do you feel about Logan Webb going against Atlanta? Atlanta has been putting up they are more healthy than they have been, especially with having Ronald Acuna back. So really the only regular they're missing was Jurickson Profar, who they acquired this offseason. Of course, he is serving an 80-game suspension for performance enhancing substances. Do you want to go with Logan Webb and his amazing ground ball rate? Does his strikeout rate, which looks like it's on an uptick again this year, does that hold? How do you feel about him in this tremendously pitching-friendly ballpark in San Francisco? 1 o'clock local start time, still going to be in the mid-60s. I would not want to live in San Francisco.
It seems like the wind's blowing out a little bit. It's maybe slightly more favorable hitting conditions, 10 miles per hour blowing out the center. It seems like based on some of the weather reports out there. Not that matters that much because you see the low run total for Atlanta, 3.5 implied runs, again, tied for the lowest on the slate. I think that all looks good for Logan Webb. And like Emac mentioned, you're talking about a guy who's mostly a ground ball pitcher, 59% ground ball rate over the last couple seasons, 22% fly ball rate amongst the lowest on the slate. He does get hit pretty hard sometimes. I mean, overall, 45% hard hit rate, but the barreled ball rate is not that high at 6.6%. So you're not really looking at a guy who's going to give up a ton of dangerous power over the course of a game. Same thing for the ISOs. He's given up about a 110 ISO to both sides of the plate. The thing that scares me for Logan Webb in particular when you compare him to Hunter Brown is like the Atlanta team has a lot of guys that could smoke the ball up top. I mean, you're talking about your top five. All of the top five have at least a 92 mile per hour exit velocity. If you include the top six, Michael Harris is at 90 miles per hour. These guys have, I would say, arguably, I'd say on the slate, they have the most pop on the slate functionally. But they also, in terms of the league, like also have some of the highest kind of hard contact rates, exit velocity, all the things that are a little bit spooky. And for Logan Webb, if he's not giving up fly balls, you're at just less danger there. But in terms of him squeezing out a good game, it's a lineup where only 2 guys strike out over league average. Logan Webb stuff, you're 8 Ks per 9 versus righties, 8.5 versus lefties over the larger sample of about the last 2 seasons. I'm not crazy about Logan Webb here. I would go much cheaper. Like I could see paying up for Hunter Brown, taking that shot, given the Guardians matchup. But Webb's stuff I don't think is good enough. I don't think the matchup is really soft for him or anything. Nice park upgrade, I guess, for, or this park downgrade for the Atlanta hitters as opposed to them being at home. But yeah, the low run total kind of surprised me. I feel like it should be closer to 4.
Yes. The one thing to remember about the wind there is the ballpark essentially mitigates it. Now, old Candlestick Park, that was a shit show. And the Polo Grounds, just a mess. But when they built the new stadium, good God, it's 30 years ago now, they designed it in a fashion that it would help mitigate the wind. If you get up in the top 3 or 4 rows, though, it is ass cold. I got lucky enough was out there during the Bonds and Sammy Sosa heydays in the spring in April. And so I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to go to a game. And I had gone there and I only had this paper thin light windbreaker and I got tickets and they were up near the top. I froze my ass off at that game.
Did you see a Bonds home run at least? I feel like that's something.
No, neither hit a home run in the game, but oh my God, the batting practice, Sosa just put on a show in batting practice. It was
now he's looked like a vampire. So how far the mighty have fallen?
Well, when you're going to be a day walker, sometimes that has to happen. All right, back to present day. Allegedly, this is not TMZ. For sure, this is not TMZ. But anything we say about celebrities, just allegedly. And if you or anyone else has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Gavin Williams, third best probability of being a top 2 pitcher. It's an interesting spot for him. He has been all over the board. Normally, I would be asking Mr. Boots on the Ground, Matt Bellman, his personal take for Gavin Williams. I think he's sort of neutral on him as he is with Logan Allen and most of their young pitchers here. I think it's an okay spot for him. It's a salary break that is helpful, particularly on DraftKings. FanDuel, you don't need it as much. There are other ways you can go. But DraftKings, I think it's helpful for him as an SP2. Are you going to get much in your portfolio here?
Yeah, so sim-wise, I got a lot of Gavin Williams. Got 40% of the sim I got in the top 150 compared to the field's 29. So I am with the projection on Gavin Williams. I do think, in terms of hand selecting a lineup for the big tournaments like I did before the show, I did eschew Gavin Williams because I don't think he's a good enough player for me to want to be aligned there if I'm not going to put in a bunch of entries in some of the bigger tournaments. So for Gavin Williams, I think the stuff is good. Overall, 24.2% K rate the last couple of years, over 9 Ks per 9 versus both sides of the plate, which is good to see. The matchup, only 2 guys that strike out over league average. You've got a bunch of guys under 20 strikeout, 20% strikeout rate. You got actually 1, 2, 3. Got 6 guys who strike under 20%, and league average is about 22.9. So, it's not really a favorable matchup on that front where it's going to be kind of thing where you could bowl some guys over potentially. But the park factor's good. Same things that favor Hunter Brown. I think also positive for Gavin Williams. So again, if you're playing a 20 max, playing 150 max, you're following the sim, you're going to get a good amount. I think if I'm hand choosing guys, he's probably not as high of a priority for me because I think he'll be a little bit overplayed.
And that makes a lot of sense. When I built out my 144 lineups on FanDuel, it pushed get me towards Gavin Williams and away from Hunter Brown. I think that was more of a leverage play. When I built out my 6 lineups using the single lineup simulator, I used I think I used 6 different starting pitchers, or I may have doubled up on Brown. But I like to kind of shake that up a little bit, put some of those lineups in the leagues, and then I put those in the regular tournament there as well. But it's that way I know I'm getting some lineups that I have carefully crafted. I've grown with love, nurtured them as they come together there. And I like to do the same on DraftKings, but I usually run out of time. So I just filled out my 50 lineups in the regular Sims. But that I found was interesting. So I'll probably put the screen up here as I finish up some of my DraftKings lineups here, once we know if we get a little bit more information on what's going on with this Diamondbacks game, which is now in the bottom of the 10th, still tied, starting out with the runner. Not the ghost runner, but the runner on second base is the Reds. Jacob deGrom actually has been pretty good, Chris. His fastball is no longer the upper 90s, and by upper 90s, I mean 89, 90 mile an hour average for game fastball. It's still around 96 to 98. This season. He's been okay with the strikeouts. Now, in his last 2 starts, he didn't get any against Toronto, which is weird, but they are the best or second best team at limiting strikeouts. In his last start, I believe he had 4 strikeouts. That was, who was that against? St. Louis. They are the 4th best team, 4th lowest strikeout rate. He's going against the Nationals, who have the 5th lowest strikeout rate. So this has been a tough row to hoe for him here. But I do think he still has good enough stuff. He's been limiting runs. He's been limiting power. It's just been the paucity of strikeouts there that have been an issue, and they're the currency of the realm here in the DFS MLB world. So that's important. I'm okay with going to him, but the Sims weren't giving me much of him on FanDuel, which I found a little bit surprising because I think he has a good chance for the quality start, which you get the bonus over there, 6 innings and no more than 3 earned runs. How are you feeling about Jacob deGrom?
Yeah, I think it's a strong play today. I got more than the field in my top 150 set I ran with the sim, got 31% field to 20. We've seen deGrom in his last, his not last 3 starts overall, but 3 starts ago, he got over 100 pitches. So, there is still a ceiling there in the right situation that he can get that pitch count up enough to have the upside, even though I know people will be concerned with the injury history and all of that. Really the biggest things in what we were talking about, let's talk about a little bit in the chat and mentioned before, he's got the best stuff in the slate. The last 2 seasons, he's had about a 16% swing strike rate, 52% chase rate. That's number 1 in the slate by a pretty wide margin. Going a little bit further than that, which honestly might not add a ton of extra starts for deGrom given his injury stuff. But he's faced about 210 batters on the right-handed side of the plate, 9.4 Ks per 9 there, 220 batters on the lefty side, 11 Ks per 9 there. You are getting a good amount of lefties today for him as well, so I think it is more favorable for him than it might appear. I think it's a strong play. I think that in terms of the pitchers that I like the most in the slate in terms of just their pure upside and not including the dumpster diving guys who I think just have good matchups. deGrom and Hunter Brown, I think, would be my obvious top 2 here. And I'm with you. The Nationals don't strike out a lot, but I agree. FanDuel quality start does seem like he'd have a good shot at getting that. Strikeouts, he'll still find some, even though I don't expect this to be a ceiling strikeout spot necessarily. But deGrom stuff is too good. Like, I don't know how you wouldn't play him if he's mostly full health, even though the small sample size watchers will go like he's not all the way there so far this year.
Yeah, and then with Washington, so James Wood, and then they ended up with putting Alex Call in the lineup. But they're the only 2 that strike out above league average. Everybody else is well below. Everybody else is 20% or below. Robert Hassel has 42 at-bats in lefty-righty matchup, so we're not counting him, but he's still at 21%. So it's one of those where pitching talent should win out, but there's not many gimme lineup or gimme opportunities here. Whereas if we look at Hunter Brown, he's got the whole back half of the Guardians lineup that presents strikeouts. Now, the one thing about the Nationals lineup is they don't have a ton of. Oh, sorry, I had that on 30-day sample size. I've put it up to just this year. The last 4 hitters in the Nationals lineup do not even get to a 100 ISO. which is almost impossible to do. They're at like 0.98 collectively. So that means potential for 3 up, 3 down innings because Alex Call is the only one that has above a 300 WOBA, which is weighted on base average, which takes into account how often who's on base via hits, walks, etc. You want that. Like a good hitter is in the the 330s, 340s, right? All stars are like 350 to 370, and then gods are like 400 or higher. The Nationals are 270, 329, 274, and 295. That's a good chance for deGrom there to kind of collect himself, hopefully get some fly ball outs, some ground ball outs, etc. So that is the one call out I wanted to do there. The last, well, I guess there's still 3 pitchers to talk about. Let's hit Suarez here. So let me get to this. So Ranger Suarez, good ground ball pitcher. He's going against the Pirates, who, if you look at their 2-year sample size, Nick Gonzalez, Andrew McCutchen, Brian Reynolds, those guys are all pretty good against lefties. The rest of the lineup from Brian Hayes down, god awful. If we look at just this year, Brian Reynolds is about the only one who has any good numbers against lefties, which makes this kind of a pathetic lineup there. But the challenge with Suarez is his strikeout rates are ticking back down. He looked like he was going to be, a poor man's Framber Valdez, not quite getting there, still good at run prevention, but the strikeouts may not be there. How do you feel about Suarez? And then we'll wrap it up with the battle for Florida.
Yeah, so Suarez is a really bad projection from Stokastic with the 14.4 projection. If you're going to compare that with some of the other guys on the slate, we've talked about, Hunter Brown, he's at 18.8, Logan Webb, 17.4, deGrom 16.5, even Gavin Williams, who I have some critiques about just with the ownership he's going to get in the sim, even he doesn't look like the top sim pitcher, he's got a 16.9 projection. So to me, the main merit that Suarez has is that he looks like he'll be the least owned out of this group with only 14% expected ownership, and Suarez also not coming up a lot for me naturally in the sim. Only got 4% before the show, but I don't think his talent's strong enough. I don't think the matchup is strong enough for me to go out of my way to get Ranger Suarez. Again, I'm pretty comfortable dumpster diving at pitcher, which I'll keep hinting at. We'll get to the shittier pitchers in a moment. But Suarez, to me, I feel like he is a guy in that group of salaries. He's your least owned. There is some game theory logic in going him for that. But matchup-wise, like Emac mentioned, you're not talking about a guy getting over league average strikeouts, only 22.6% there. Lineup he's facing is at 23.4% with 5 guys that strike out over league average, which is not a bad matchup, but not one that, he's going to rise to the highest heights necessarily. So for Ranger Suarez, to me, I think the stuff's not good enough. The swing strike rate, chase rate don't show a guy who's going to suddenly pick up a ton more strikeouts. But he may hit just because if he puts up 20 and it's a low-owned 20 at his salary and some of the other guys fail, that could work. So, and he'll probably get a win too. So Pittsburgh sucks, but I feel like they don't suck enough here for me to want to go Suarez's way.
All right, the game in Cincinnati did end. They won in extra innings 4-3 against Arizona. So they most likely will be starting at 4:05, I hope. But this is where baseball can get a little fuzzy at times. So it looks like there's going to be enough time that they get in. And I've seen different sources say 30, 35, and 40 minutes. It used to be 30, but I've seen enough that have said more. They could have been one of the baseball rules changes that I lost track of with all of the pitch clock and ghost runners and things of that nature these days. So I think it's 40 minutes now. But hell, they used to have a 40-man roster for September call-ups. Now they only have 1 or 2 extra spots. So things change. My brain can't hold all of the rare, I don't want to say useless, all of the rarely encountered baseball rules, like what happens with this.
I saw 40 on social media this morning, so I think you got it right. I mean, based on whatever the things that I saw, assuming that was right, and I believe it is. So that's what matters for being right today in 2025.
All right. So the big thing we're saying for this is Josh Naylor, right? So he's been dealing. He left early on Thursday's game, and then he didn't play on Friday's game. Or I didn't look to see if he somehow pinch hit in this one. Maybe that gives us an answer. He did not pinch hit in this one. So he was having wrist and I think back issues. It could have just been a day off because it was lefty Nick Lodolo that started out the game yesterday. And Naylor's okay against lefties, but they could have just used that as there's enough things to give this guy a break kind of thing. So plus with the weather, they may have just said, well, let's not have him hurt himself. So he's the guy we're kind of waiting to see, is he going to be in the game or not? All right, the battle for Florida here. So this one is in Steinbrenner Field. Remember, Tampa Bay is playing outside this year. It is the field has been designed. The outfield essentially mimics old and new Yankee Park. However, it is 87 degrees right now here in Tampa. I'm about 20 miles south of the stadium. It is humid and there is a light breeze blowing out. That makes for good hitting weather. Now, on the pitching front here, we have Ryan Weathers, who's looked pretty good. He's made 3 or maybe 4 starts now since returning from injury. I can't remember what it was, but it was something that shut him down in spring training back or some nothing super serious, but he had to build his strength back up. So he's looked pretty good. The Tampa Bay lineup is pesky, but this park is it's almost like Coors Field when the weather's like this. So the run totals should be higher. On the other side, you have Taj Bradley, who I think is in play as an SP2. If this game was in Miami, I would say both pitchers are. Weathers just doesn't quite have consistent strikeout stuff. Yes, through his 87 hitters this year, he has a 25 or a 26% strikeout rate, but that's below or above his career average. Bradley, on the other hand, forgot how to strike out hitters out, or so it felt. He's ticking back up, but it's not a great spot. And then the Miami lineup, they have 7 players that are well below league average for strikeouts. They have 2 that are win machines. That's Dane Meyer and then Connor Norby. Connor Norby's going to be like a career 33% strikeout guy. But those are opportunities where Bradley can help himself because those guys are heavy strikeout potential. Do you want to go with the pitchers in this game?
Yeah, I think they're both interesting. I'm getting above the field, both sim-wise, and then for my personal choice, I did build some single lineup simulator lineups with Taj Bradley before the show as part of my 2 dumpster dive pitcher lineups. So I am unfortunately team Taj Bradley today. Looking at the numbers, really it does give you some concern because Miami, even though they're one of those teams that we kind of lump in with the White Sox tier of guys, Colorado, like I think people treat them as like doorstops that can get a lot of strikeouts. You only have 3 guys in this lineup striking out over league average overall versus right-handed pitching. You also have a bunch of guys closer to a 15% strikeout rate than a 20% plus in your top 5, and that includes Xavier Edwards, Otto Lopez, Ramirez, Hicks. They all are guys 10 to 15% strikeout rate. That doesn't bode well for Bradley, but Bradley's stuff has been good over the last couple of years. 26% K rate, 9 Ks per 9 versus righties, 10.5 versus lefties. So he's gotten the results before. I do think the weather is a concern. The fact that, as something that our pal Eric Lindquist has mentioned a bunch throughout the year as well, it is like a bandbox out there, 17% more home runs this year in terms of park factors at Steinbrenner Field. But the total's low. So with a 3.9 implied runs for Miami, it feels like maybe Taj Bradley gives up 1 ding at some point. Wouldn't shock me because he does give up a lot of dangerous power. Overall, 216 ISO allowed to righties is really bad. 170 ISO allowed to lefties is not good either. So he can give up dangerous power. Just your hope if you play Bradley is that the strikeout stuff's good enough. The Miami line that he's going against is not particularly fearsome, even though they don't strike out a bunch. But Bradley does, I think with how much ownership he has, if you're playing a 20 max, you should get some Miami lineups today. I'll play Bradley, but I would like to stack against him if I'm putting in a bunch.
All right. Dangerous power, like Austin Danger powers?
Yes, or like Carlos Danger, the former Anthony Weiner.
Oh, I forgot. That's right up there with the Ron Mexico also.
He's back now. He's trying to be a politician again, which is crazy. I don't know you can get away with that, but that's...
Because that's just all name record. Don't get me started. All right. But, I mean, you've experienced Twitter toxicity. The world got to experience it yesterday when the president of the United States and the richest guy in the world got in a big old Twitter slap fight. Or was that Thursday? Whenever that was. We're in the 2020 simulation again.
Things gone off the rails a little bit in the sim, but we still got baseball DFS. So how bad could it be, right? That's what we say.
Well, we've got sims here at Stokastic, and you guys can get them at a discount if you go through our link join offer here. Choose one of the promotions below. You've got to click through the link on this landing page. Nightbot's been dropping it into the chat. You sign up for with this, you get our offer, plus you get whatever's listed here from the operators. So they will give you deposit matches or first bet back type odds or offers. So once you have deposited, made your first bet, play pick'em card, etc., and it's settled, take screenshots of that, send that with your welcome email to support@stokastic.com, and we will get you set up with one single sport month of sims. So right now you could do MMA, you could do NBA, but there's only going to be 4 or 5 more nights of that. Or you could do baseball, which is going to be taking place every day except for one little short week there in July between now and September. So you guys definitely want to check that out. And then again, MMA, why not just take advantage of the 50% off promo code 316 in honor of UFC 316, which is taking place tonight. The fights lock at 8. This offer ends shortly thereafter. So take advantage of that. Let's hit the stacks here, Chris, because now we've said good things about some of the players here or pitchers. Let's say some bad things about some of them. I think everybody wants to start off with the Texas Rangers. Corey Seager not in the lineup today. He is pretty good in lefty-lefty matchups, especially against the Nationals lefty, who's going to be Mitchell Parker. Now, Parker was decent last year from a real baseball perspective. Why is that decent? Well, he's on a cheap contract. He's still a couple years away from arbitration, and he made, I forget, like 28 or 29 starts. Teams love that because his superpower, I put that in the article today, his superpower is being able to take the ball every 5 or 6 days. The rest of it is not great. He's going to be an innings eater. He is a poor man's Patrick Corbin without all the home runs, but with even fewer strikeouts. So we're going to like Texas. Now, Texas, 3rd fewest runs scored this season. 3rd fewest total bases this season. They got a couple guys that'll steal bags, but they've been kind of a mess. Adolis Garcia and Marcus Semien banished to the 7, 8, and 9 spots for a little bit. Now, Marcus Semien's been on a heater. His last 5 or 6 games, I think he has 11 hits and 22 at-bats. He's got stolen bases. He's scored like 8 times. He's hit 3 home runs. Or 2 home runs in this and about as many doubles. He's knocked in 5 RBI. So he seems to be back. They put him in the cleanup spot. I don't know if trust is a word we want to use, but he has been a long, successful player for multiple franchises here. It just seemed like it was one of those years as he is getting older where things weren't clicking. But I think we can trust him, and he's a bit of a discount dandy depending on your side of choice. I'm assuming Texas is going to be one of your top stacks in addition to the Cincy and Arizona side of things here in a Great American Ballpark. Take us through Texas.
Yeah, for Texas, I think if you're running the sim, you're going to get a good amount of them. They're my number 2 most exposed 5-man stack, my most exposed 4-man stack. I think the main thing that stands out with them, and I will say for them, like, again, I would choose Cincinnati if I'm going to hand choose a stack. I think first and foremost, I like the fact that certainly probably keeps the ownership down a little bit on a Saturday, and I like the matchup a little bit more against Ryan Nelson. But for Texas, you're getting 4.6 implied runs here. You do have 6 guys in the lineup that strike at above league average, but it's not an ugly lineup overall. 195 ISO collectively for the guys that are hitting today, and that includes nobody really who's like a crazy outlier from small sample size. It's guys like Wyatt Langford who hit well, Josh Young hit well versus lefties. Jake Berger would be another one. Garcia historically has, I know this season's maybe not been great for him. Higashioka's always been a lefty masher, so you've got guys that can put damage up against Mitchell Parker, but I think Parker's kind of an interesting dumpster dive pitcher play as well. I didn't get him very much in the sim. I think that there's strikeouts to be had here, and you are getting leverage directly on a Texas stack. It's going to be really highly owned, but that's more of like a 1 to 5% play. I think with Texas, they're going to be a key part of what you do because they're just mispriced really with nobody being above 4K in the lineup besides Wyatt Langford. And Langford's certainly worth it. He gets some steals. He does hit home runs at a good rate, 6.3% overall versus lefties, but you could definitely fade Langford if you want to take some other guys, but you could play a 5-man stack from Texas. It'll open up everything on the slate.
All right. I see people asking about the weather in Cincinnati. I'll do another check there, but it doesn't look like it's going to be a huge impact. The bigger impact is we may not have the starting lineup before the contest actually locks. If anybody sees that, feel free to post that into the chat, please, from a verified source, but I know we're all eagerly awaiting that. But I'm not that worried about the weather, and we're not going to play the pitchers in that one.
Yeah, your pitchers probably wouldn't play because there's a chance of some start-stop, but pitchers probably aren't really in play projection-wise either anyway.
Yeah. All right. So this leads into I'm surprised that Ryan Nelson is not. Well, I mean, it's not a huge difference, but Ryan Nelson, I would have thought Cincinnati would be like the third highest stack. Now they're only 2 percentage points behind, the Philadelphia Phillies. But what do you think of our Phillies here? We'll circle on Cincinnati last, hoping we get the lineup there. But what do you think about the Phillies here? If I remember correctly, Bryce Harper's not in the lineup.
Yeah, no Bryce Harper today. You got Otto Kemp in the lineup, who I don't have any data on. I'm not sure if that's a FanGraphs thing or what. But really, good run total here. Andrew Heaney does tend to get blown up a little bit from the righty side of the plate. 180 ISO allowed there. He's also, frankly, got a higher whip from the lefty side, so he's got flaws for both, but does give it more dangerous power to righties overall. And you've got a very righty-heavy lineup with a bunch of guys, including Schwarber from the left-hand side, who can really generate some dangerous power. But Philly, to me, sim-wise, got 1% for 5-mans, 1% for 4-mans, 2% for 3-mans, not a priority stack for me. Park factors here, at least in terms of the 1-year sample size this season in Pittsburgh, negative 2% overall, so not adding a ton of value there. Technically be a park downgrade for Philly. So I'm not crazy about them. I think there are other stacks to get to, but they are low owned, not a bad run total, and Heaney's certainly not anybody you're afraid of at this stage of his career. So I get the logic for Philly. Is that somebody you're intrigued by today, EMAC?
So I did, and I'm actually going to put this on the screen because I think it's more fun to look at. I'm handbuilding. I'm single sim building some of my lineups here, and I did this on FanDuel as well. But let me share this. Share to StreamYard. Hopefully. Okay. So what I did is I said, okay, I want to build out a Ranger Suarez lineup, but I like having some of his hitters with him. So the ones I looked at were easily enough going to be Trey Turner, Schwarber, and Castellanos. So when I put those guys in there and I just say complete this lineup, let's see what else pops up. You can see it's going to feed some Texas guys in there. It's going to like Corbin Carroll. We've learned that the Sims, and it does seem to be more appropriate, that take those awesome one-off players and get over the field with them, like the formerly Mike Trouts, but now it's Shohei Ohtani, it's Corbin Carroll, it's Aaron Judge. Those are the guys that are just really the difference maker. But you can see here, you can get a nice, this has a solid simulated ROI there. So what that means is, and I've just had this set up here in the under 1,000 lineup contest because I build these more like they're kind of not cash game, but they're like the lineups that I would feel good about in all formats. And I build out 7 or 8 of them just to see what happens, because I like to make sure. That's the one thing I get, and I don't get annoyed with it on Sims because there are many solves. You just filter by the stacks, or you filter by the pitcher combinations you want, and you choose the lineups you want. But I still kind of an old school person here that likes to kind of get my hands dirty here.
For baseball, I think the single lineup sim, frankly, I think it's one of our Stokastic least promoted tools that adds a lot of value for baseball, because a lot of times you get lineups that are
don't. This is like the last bastion out there, Chris.
You're giving away the edge for something that you guys can go pay for right now. How convenient. But no, but like honestly, I like it a lot, because sometimes with the sim, and again, the sim is representative of a lot of success Stokastic had. Like I think they're MLB, I don't want to speak out of pocket, but I think MLB has been the sport the founders have been most profitable out in their careers, because it is in some ways your most playable DFS sport for the approach Stokastic brings. But that said, like sometimes you get a lot of lineups that feel samey in the sim sometimes. And I do like taking that concept, taking some things that I like that I saw in the sim and trying to build out, what if I get the star batters in and I go down a little bit of pitcher? Can that get me there? I've had a lot of success with that so far this year for the slates I've been playing. And I think for me, the single lineup sim in MLB, I like it more, frankly, than NBA. NFL has different merits as well. But it is underplayed, I think, in terms of what we talk about with Stokastic.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I like to go as well. But I like all of our tools, right? They're all great in a variety of ways. So like I build out the 150 on FanDuel. DraftKings, for how I like to do it, I feel 50 is the better lineup set for me. And I've done that in baseball and basketball, and now basketball, did that in basketball, and now doing it in baseball. Because I just was not getting what I felt I wanted. Now, this is like great. You're going against simulation, AI, machine learning, all that's really, you think this guy's smarter than all of that? Well, We'll see. We'll see. But this is one where I like to approach things a little differently and find those little edges where you feel comfortable, where you can find your risk reward ratio, etc. I mean, with baseball, there's almost 200 like large slates there. If we bring in the day games, night games, and all that, we're looking closer to 240 of them, of four games or more slates throughout the whole year. If you're utilizing your little advantage over and over and over, it adds up over the course of the season. So that's just someone that's been surviving in this for a long time. Wanted to mention that for you guys. All righty, let's see here. How many lineups does it says I've built out? We'll do one more. Take us through the rest of the stacks here, Chris. Who from Arizona is your guy?
You mean for Arizona, I think what you said before at the Sims giving you Corbin Carroll, I think that's certainly something that I would say afflicted me is saying, because I'm happy to get Corbin Carroll, our pal Eric Lindquist, one of his favorite players, I'm sure, based on his touting, if nothing else. But got him 30% in my top 150. He was also a player I did like as a one-off in the lineups I was building before the show in the single lineup sim. He's my favorite Arizona play overall. You're getting similar ownership going to Ketel Marte, though. Over 10% for Naylor, Eugenio Suarez, Lourdes Gurriel. I think with me for Nick Martinez I think Martinez is actually a pretty good pitcher. The strikeout rate's not there, only 20.5%. He's only got 7 Ks per 9 versus righty bats, 8.6 Ks per 9 versus lefties, a little more respectable. But he doesn't get hit hard very often, 31% hard hit rate. His soft contact rate overall is also at 20.6. So I'm not crazy about the Arizona side of the equation for a loaded stack for getting the 5-mans, and the sim wasn't either. Only got 0.7% 5-man stacks, 0.7% 4-man stacks. I like taking one-offs here, like taking Carroll, like taking the 3-mans a little bit more. And the 3-mans, I think you can afford more easily. Got those more in the sim. And I think in terms of hand building, a little bit easier to get there. But if I'm choosing one guy, it's Corbin Carroll. For me, though, I like the Cincinnati side a lot more. Ryan Nelson, to me, grades out as the worst pitcher on the slate. 186 ISO allowed to righties, 208 ISO allowed to lefties, 9.3% barreled ball rate is worse than the slate. And the thing for him, too, is that he attacks the zone pretty often. 46.1% zone pitch rate is the highest on the slate. So he's going after the zone, and he's not good when he goes after the zone. So those are the kind of spots I think you want to go after. I took a 5-man Cincinnati stack in my highest dollar build today that I put together a single lineup sim for. Cincy to me is a really important team today. I like them a lot, and hopefully the starting lineup doesn't get stupid that when we get it announced. But I like Cincinnati as my favorite stack on the day.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I've noticed here, I don't think so. And I took this an hour ago. I don't want to refresh it because I'm going to lose all the lineups I've built out. But I'm sharing on the screen here. I don't think. Yeah, we didn't have De La Cruz in the lineup. But is he? I'm embarrassed to even ask this. Is he hurt, or were we just probably guessing he wasn't going to be?
I don't think he was available for the early game, if I'm remembering correctly from looking at the box score before. So I think he might be hurt. But he wasn't on the lineup, so I just haven't accounted for it.
Yeah, let me double check here. Oh, he came in as a pinch hitter.
There you go.
So again, this is what it's. I'm not going to explain it, but we get it. It's a mess. It's pain. The hat tip to the projection guys that sort through these double headers. Here we are, 15 years into DFS, and double headers still screw everything up, including ESPN. ESPN got all their fantasy stuff was screwed up today because of the suspended game. It's sort of like how we haven't solved for this yet as a group. I don't know. This is more damaging than Y2K was. Hey, there's another joke that most people aren't going to remember.
Apparently his sister passed away, just for factual accuracy, not for a fun bit, but yeah.
Oh, okay. So his availability was probably in question.
He missed Justin says he missed his Friday flight from his sister's funeral Friday night, so he could be available. He could not be. I don't know.
Okay. Since he pinch hit, I suspect he'll.
Yeah, he should be, I would guess.
Flim Flam Man asks us in Discord, who do you like best for your single stack or a single entry? And I was going to build out a Cincinnati one because, like you, I'm not a fan of Ryan Nelson here. What would your answer be for Flim Flam Man?
Yeah, it's Cincinnati for me. I mean, that was what I was really trying to figure out there was the best way to approach that. For me, I mean, I like the lefties a good amount here because Ryan Nelson has gotten really smacked around by lefties. Giving over a 200 ISO to one side of the plate always is something that stands out to me as trying to go against a little bit more. But you have Friedel, you have Lux in the lineup. We'll see again what the final lineup is. Benson, Fraley, you're taking on some pinch hit risk with some of the guys later in the order, I think. But those 4 lefties, I think, would be appealing. And Stevenson's got great pop as well. The tough part for Cincinnati stacking is you have 2 guys at first base. If the lineup is the same as it is with Steer and Encarnacion Strand. But, you could just pick one of them.
Yeah, well, and here's a fun one built out a 5-man Cincy stack, but I also got Corbin Carroll and Bobby Witt. My pitchers are Gavin Williams and Tosh Bradley. Come on down. Bring the strikeouts with you, please.
Looking very similar to what I got as well, except I got Ramirez as my third baseman in a sim completed lineup there.
All right. The one lineup I haven't built out here is a Miami one. So just quickly here, we're going to go down the Miami side here. Anything else in the middle to lower end of the stacks? This is really a consolidated grouping of teams near the top. And I think you can still find differentiation by going through the 6 different teams we've talked about in this one. It's kind of a fun slate.
Yeah, I mean, the Rays, I think, was one team we haven't talked about enough here, and they were not a team that, for me, was really one that I was like going to go to my way for on my own kind of hand building. But looking through the numbers again, Weathers, I think EMAC talked about. Certainly, he's got some volatility in terms of his upside, where he's been not bad as a pitcher, but he does have some flaws for sure. In particular, not getting strikeouts, getting hard hit. Barreled really more is the noteworthy thing, an 8% barreled ball rate. He's going against a lineup as well. It's got 4.8 implied runs for them. The Sims love Tampa Bay today. They got it for similar reasons. They like Texas, where it's a good run total. The prices for these guys are not bad, besides Brandon Lau hitting in the 3-hole. But overall, these guys are really chalkily owned, I think it looks like, based on the sim. 17% 5-man stacks, 5% 4-man stacks. Tampa Bay is probably, I would say, your cash game stack. If you are building like that, I guess you shouldn't really stack for cash games. You know what I'm saying? But they're your chalk, I think, for sure. Texas and Tampa Bay should be your sim chalk of the day is a better way to put that.
All right, so I don't think we have a display here that you can see all the single built lineups, but of the 10 I built, all of them have Corbin Carroll in it. 6 of the 10 have Bobby Witt. 3 have Trey Turner. Those were the 3 Philadelphia ones I built out. So the other thing you need to know is when you're building out these sims, you have to be kind of careful, because what it does is it gives you the same players over and over, because it's just saying who's the best. So unless you're like filling up the outfield, it's going to try to get Corbin Carroll in there, or same thing with like Ohtani, etc. So just throwing that.
Kind of like a classic optimizer, basically, with whatever spots you got left.
Yeah. But aside from that, and again, it's that's called the single lineups. If you would like to get unique and different lineups, guess what? There's a whole nother product, the full sims, that does that for you. So this is one where you just need to learn to finesse things just a little bit, and it will still be fun. All right. Let's see. You want to hit the late slate real quick here? And then we can back and see if we get the lineups. All right. So
Cincinnati lineup's apparently out. Chad is saying Friedel, Lux, Ellie makes it in, Encarnacion Strand, Benson, Stevenson, Steer, Fraley, McLean. So the guy who's not starting that was expected to, Espinal is out of the lineup. So if you had Espinal in your lineup, take him out.
Good. So while I will refresh this, and then that should bring in the new lineup. There. So actually, I'm going to close that out. So let me go back to sharing this. And did that work? Yep. Okay. All right. So for the later slate here, the night slate, it's New York once again, 7 implied run total. Enjoy. Where it gets fun is anything after that. So on the stacking side, I think targeting Luis Severino is a good call out. His home road splits have been drastic. Now they'll get a little closer towards each other, but he has I'm going from memory, it's in my article, but it looks sub-1 ERA on the road, away from West Sacramento, away from Sutter Health Park. In that stadium, he's allowed just 4 home runs, but he has almost a 7 ERA. His strikeouts are just precipitously low. His best years were like 5 years ago when he had his back-to-back All-Star appearances, and God, it was probably longer than 5 years ago. I think it was 2018 and 19. We think of him as, oh, it's Luis Severino because we got beaten over the head because he was a Yankee for so long that you just always heard about him. He got the bag from the Athletics, 3-year, $67 million deal. They way outpaced what the Mets were going to offer him, or what they did offer him after his loan season there. So he took it, as he well should. But he is going to kind of be an innings eater type of fella. I really like Baltimore here. What do you see as the stacks after Baltimore and the Mets?
I'm not gonna lie to you, Mac. I did not have the late slate prepared today.
Oh, so, I'm sorry.
I thought I could pull something up fast and get it together, but I thought we were doing only the men. So.
No. That's okay. Well, this is it. You guys get I'll get the link here and drop it in the chat. You get all my thoughts there for pitching as well. I'll just riff on these real quick. Since I look
trying to pull it in fast. If I have a last minute take, I will drop it in. But
okay, no worries there. And then we can circle. We still got the dong of the day.
Even without the real Eric, I don't know. It's gonna be weird to do his puppet.
Well, I've done it. Greg made me do it on the show with him. I did.
Did he make you sing it too?
Him. Oh, I sang it. By the Spags doing the puppet Lindquist. It was actually glorious. Yeah, it was good. If I do say so myself, and I just did. Therefore, it is good. If we look at the pitching here, so Garrett Crochet is going to be going against the Yankees. You're getting apex strikeout guy against a lineup that does have strikeouts in it, but also is a very, very, very dangerous lineup with their usual suspects. Luis Castillo is essentially your run prevention pitcher at this point. His strikeouts are at an all-time low, well below his career average, well below his heyday when he was still with Cincinnati. But he does a good job of this season anyway, limiting power, and he's a stabilizing presence in the rotation. He's going against Los Angeles Angels roster that essentially has two lefties on it, I think, Nolan Shawnell and then Luis Renifo, the switch hitter. And Renifo is probably he's terrible. He's like a 200 average or so from the left side of the plate this year. So I would not worry about him at all. Clay Holmes getting the ace treatment in Colorado. So the Rockies at home, the algorithms are now picking up on this. They are assigning a high salary for a lot of pitchers in Coors Field. The Rockies are on a historically bad offense, probably going to have the all-time worst record in Major League Baseball history, which doesn't quite carry the magnitude since we just heard about that all last year with the Chicago White Sox. But these guys are a full standard deviation below the Chicago White Sox. You can't say how bad they really are. So going with Holmes is okay. The one thing you want to remember about him is he's up to about almost 70 innings this season. Each of the last three, when he was the Yankees' primary closer, he threw around 63 or 64 innings each of those years. So workload a little bit of a concern, but the whole goal is for him to be a full-time starter now. So those are kind of the pitching options that you have. And then I think Charlie Morton could probably survive because he induces enough ground balls that he might be able to survive against Oakland. But, he's got Oakland against the Athletics in West Sacramento. But he is getting a nice discount, the senior citizens discount, because he's 82 years old now. So good times for that. But that's kind of your quick look at your night slate here. Yeah.
Luis Castillo versus the A's, or versus the Angels, rather, would not be opposed to that either. Just with my quick little look here of the fastest possible Excel import I could do.
All right. Look at you, all Mr. Excel and everything.
I've always done that. Eddie Lai back in the day had made my first Excel sheet that got me hooked on Excel for doing these shows, because you could make all the data kind of align and have it easily, referenced. And yeah, I've been an Excel addict. I've got it for every sport I do.
Very, very nice. All right, I'm going to get these sims here going. I'm going to talk through this real quick as I do it. I do change our blend. I know this is no longer replicating what the standard pool of entries is most likely going to be, but I want certain types of lineups to select from. Aside from that, I don't change anything as we're building this out initially. I will do my boosts, I will limit people, etc. once the contest has been created. If you're changing things before that, like, oh, I think this person's going to be more represented in the tournament, or they're going to, I'm going to give them 2 more extra fantasy points or take 2 fantasy points away, that's fine, but it's not what everybody else is kind of building off of. And it's no longer representative of a tournament that you're in. So the easiest way to describe this, if you build out a bunch of shitty lineups, it's going to have good ROI when they're battling the other shitty lineups. When you take them out of your little world and put them into the real world, they're going to get their ass kicked. So this is where we want to be representative of what tournaments are doing. Now that it's built out what the combination of the lineups are going to be, now it's simming it play-by-play data. I can't remember if it's 10,000 times or 20,000 times. This takes a little bit of time. The more, I'm building 5,000 lineups. The more lineups that you choose, the larger the slate, the longer it takes. This goes lickety-split for MMA, very quick for PGA, real quick for NASCAR. But you're looking, MMA, what is there? 26 fighters in the player pool. NASCAR is about 40 drivers in their main events. It might even be down to 38 at this point because they don't have enough people sponsoring cars. So it's, those go super fast. Baseball takes a lot of time, 9 positions plus the pitcher, or 2 pitchers on DraftKings. So that just takes a little bit here. But once we get this built out, let's see if there's questions coming in as well. Oh shit, Carol is not in the lineup.
Oh, okay.
Fudge.
That's interesting.
Well, let's look and see. That's going to just hose me. Carol. Oops. So simulated lineup. Now you can see, here's what to do. Fire drill time. Carol is current. Let's do Corbin.
Oof, they're not good price point pivots either.
No, there's not. Why is this not doing what I want it to do? Oh, maybe we took him out already. Okay, so let's clear that. I may have lucked out. So what I'm doing here, and we've got 7 minutes. So on the filter here, you can do by lineups and you can sort. I'm just trying to find the name. No, I see him right there. So I got to go fix this. So now I'm in real oh shit time. So what are we going to do? We're going to go to contest generator. I'm only going to build out 2,000. I'm going to keep that where it is.
We're going to see some real process today.
Yeah, I'm going to go to generate lineups, and this is where I'm going to need to zero him out. Now, remember, I've got him in all. I said he was in all my hand-built lineups. So all my hand-built lineups just went to shit. So that's, yeah, this is fun. Good luck, old pal, says Michael Henry. There we go. There we go. Well, I appreciate you guys for calling that out. I would have missed that in my haste here. So this is where, okay, so Corbin.
I'm just going down to James Wood.
Yeah, pool exposure, simulate lineups. This is where I can make sure. All right. Okay, so he's out now of our lineups. So I can build that.
If you're low on time and you have Corbin Carroll in lineups, you can swap. If you have $100 to Acuna, you can go down to James Wood. I went down to James Wood in the lineups I had Carroll in.
Hey, that'll be leverage against the
against DeGrom. Yeah, I do not have DeGrom in this lineup or these lineups.
Yeah. Poopy poop. This is why now, fortunately, I already built out my FanDuel stuff. So, and that game wasn't involved, so I don't have to worry about
ABJ
that.
asking, is Naylor playing? Naylor is hitting in the 4-hole at DH for the Diamondbacks.
All right. So, now we've done that. Now I'm going to change my approach. I'm going to build 100, or I'm going to flag 100 lineups. I'm just quickly looking at exposure here. So, Gavin Williams, I'll influence pitcher exposures. I actually like where most of this is coming out. It's a little lighter on thing. I don't really care that I'm getting 1 or 2% of those guys. Let's see where the stacks are. You can look at hitters individually, but you can also look at the overall stack. So it's giving me a bunch of Tampa, a bunch of Texas. It's giving me Arizona. What I do want to do here is I want to give, since Naylor ends up being in the lineup, I want to give a little bit of a boost to him. I don't have a lot of time to do that, so we're just going to give him 2 clicks. I want Suarez, give him 2 clicks, and then Friedel, 2 clicks, and Will Benson. And what this is doing is it's giving any lineup that has one of those guys in it, is giving it elevated rate. So you can see that it went up by 40%. That's because it has I can't talk right now, 4 of those players in it. I'm going to download my lineups because we are in Valle con Dios mode. The old go with God. What time does this game officially start? Is it?
It's 4:10, I believe.
4:10. Okay, so that will allow me to keep the few lineups I do have with Carroll, and I will go hand swap those out immediately. So I am going to upload this stuff, but this is why you guys want to. This is one thing that Fast Eddie Fair used to constantly talk about, among the many things he liked to talk about. But this is very pertinent. Is having a plan when shit goes sideways. Know what you need to do. Know how to approach things in a manner that is not going to cost you money. And that's why he would say practice fire drills. This would be one of them. You guys have watched enough of my shows to know that I have been caught not getting lineups in. It's one thing when there's only 1 or 2 games going at lock. It's something entirely differently when it is half of the flippity flippin' slate at 405 and the other half at 410. So I'm not sharing my FanDuel or my DraftKings screen, but I am going in and just doing a global swap for those lineups where I had Carroll. Why did it do that? Oh, buddy. Interesting. Upcoming lineups. There's no pressure makes diamonds, Spags.
Yeah, I realize I have Brandon Lau in one of my highest dollar lineups, and I don't want that. Lefty.
MLB, Adolis Garcia, Carroll out. Oh, could do O'Neal Cruz, but I'm going to go James Wood. Oh, I could have gone Schwarber as well, but saved my lineups. So there we go. That is how you try to react under pressure. Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shitty lineups. We'll see what happens when the dust settles here. Now, sometimes this is why you can't get angry. This happened, I forget what game ended up. Oh, the random postponed game two Fridays ago, where it was like postponed literally like 2 minutes before lock or whatever it was. I had to go back in and fix a whole bunch of lineups by hand. I ended up winning a ticket into that silly pocket. I call it the pocket change contest, but the DraftKings has this thing called the Pocket Cup. It was a 1 cent lineup, 150 lineups. I went in and fixed them all, and I ended up winning because there was only one game that was unlocked, and I stacked it. I ended up winning out of 40,000 people. I won by 7 points or something.
That's a nice win.
I didn't get mad, right? It's like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We play lots of slates to take advantage of these little edges. So there was your little crash course in watching me crash into a brick wall, potentially there. But that will do it for us. Final thoughts, Spags. Let the people know where they can find you.
You can follow me at Chris Spags. Usually try to retweet stuff I'm in on Twitter, or check out my channels at Splash Play Pod, at Splash Play Bets. That's where I'm doing my content, the regular for best ball, for NBA. And of course, you got this promo that EMAC will take you through right now with the beautiful AI imagery.
All right. This was created by one Greg Ehrenberg. He said, make sure everybody knows that with promo code 316, you get 50% off any MMA Core or MMA Max package. This offer expires tonight. The contests lock at 6. with that, gamers, we'll be back here doing this again tomorrow morning. Check us out around noon. You'll get to see Eric Lindquist and the dong of the day. We forgot the dong of the day, Chris.
Well, but they got to see you scrambling to get lineups in of the day, which
that was worth it. So Corbin Carroll pinch hit home run. That's what my call is for today.
We're gonna get screwed somehow by these chains. Ellie De La Cruz 0 for 5 coming up.
All right. With that, gamers, good luck.